With Enzo Maresca leaving for Chelsea, Leicester had to do something about the managerial position. Graham Potter said no. Carlos Corberán had a £4 million release clause from West Brom, so they couldn't get him. Steve Cooper was their plan C. Is it a good appointment? Let's discuss. So I just put it out there nice and early. I think it's an okay appointment, okay? For a Premier League club looking for a manager with some Premier League experience and some experience of guiding a club to safety, I think it's a decent appointment. Steve Cooper's managed at England's youth level, he managed in the Championship at Swansea, he got Forest promoted, he got Forest safety, and then they sacked him after getting one win in the first 13 matches. So I'm just going to be really annoying for less than 20 seconds and ask you to pop subscribe on the channel, okay? I upload 1 to 2 videos per week speaking about football. It's always my opinion. I always enjoy getting you guys to comment down below as well. Your opinions. Tell me about Steve Cooper. Do you reckon he's a good appointment for Leicester? And hit the subscribe button, don't forget. Almost a decade ago, Leicester won the Premier League. A few mess seasons in the Premier League after that came, and then they ended up getting relegated. Enzo Maresca came into the club at the start of last season and he's got them promoted. And really that was the minimum expectation with players like Ricardo Pereira, Wout Fast, Ndidi, Harry Winks joining, Vardy, Mavididi out on the left wing. There's so much quality in that Leicester squad and the minimum expectation was top 2. The fact that Maresca got them champions was good. It did it quite unconvincingly. I've spoke about it in a couple of videos in the past that Leicester fans were never really that sold on him as a manager. His style of football is fairly boring. You know, it's a 3-2-5 in possession and it was a lot of passing rather than a lot of creating. And Leicester are coming into the Premier League in a bit of a vulnerable position, okay? Their PSI is telling them that they can't spend much money because they're in a lot of debt and they're making a lot of loss and they're going to get a points deduction potentially from the last time that they was in the Premier League because they breached the rules. So Steve Cooper is instantly at a disadvantage. It can use it to rally the squad though, let's be honest. A lot of the time, teams survive due to being underdogs and being told they're going to go down and then they end up staying up. Look at Sheffield United when we got promoted a few seasons ago. We got 9th. And above anything, I think Steve Cooper's a fantastic man manager. So this underdog story could really tie into his management style. When he kept Forest up last season, it wasn't because they had such a good squad that they just couldn't go down. They had a 68% probability of going down and he kept them up and it was quite convincing. Although they didn't get above 40 points, which is traditionally what you need to get, the quality in the Premier League and the gap between the top 6 or the bigger clubs now, you know, Newcastle and Aston Villa are involved in the top 6 and the smaller clubs, newly promoted ones and ones which are like, you know, Crystal Palace who don't necessarily go out the way and spend too much money. The gap is getting bigger, so that 40 points target is becoming 35 now. And even from a personal point of view, the fact that he was their 3rd choice because Corberán had a £4 million release clause so they didn't want to pay that. And also Graham Potter, he was on a lot more money and he had to bring a lot of backroom staff and it was a bit more complicated to bring him in. But, you know, Steve Cooper will probably personally be feeling like he's got a point to prove. You know, why wasn't he first choice? Why did he get sacked from Forest? He's got a lot to prove and he could have easily just took a championship job with a big budget. Burnley were on the hunt for a manager and they may have taken him. He's gone to a Premier League club where the likelihood is relegation. He's going to fight for it. Now, in contrast to Maresca's style of football, it's going to be different, okay? Maresca played a highly expansive, possession-based game where they'll suffocate the opposition with the ball and won't let them touch it. Steve Cooper doesn't do that, okay? At Forest, when he got them promoted, I remember as a Sheffield United fan, the style of football it was a pragmatic, structured system where they'll spring counter-attacks in the way that they can hurt the opposition the most. Against us, it was getting Brennan Johnson to run down the right-hand side. We had Jack Robinson in the team who wasn't great and still isn't great, you know, especially on the term. And yeah, they absolutely smashed us, Forest did. And that's been Cooper's managerial style throughout his whole career, whether it was at Swansea, whether it was in the English youth national system. He'll meticulously plan out the matches and work out how he can hurt the opposition the most. Now at Forest, when they first got promoted, he wanted to play a highly expansive 5 at the back system where the wing backs will be pushing a lot. But the difference was he didn't have Jed Spence, which he had when he got promoted, and he's also playing against Premier League opposition. So after a ropey start, he ended up going to a 4-2-3-1, highly structured, highly pragmatic. The main creator in that system was Gibbs-White. Everyone else was running and chasing and pressing. You know, player like Chris Wood up front or a Wimye were just trying to win headers and knock-ons and to bring a counter-attack. But at heart, he's a manager who wants to press. He's a manager who wants to play attacking football. And at Forest, he did what he could, and I reckon he did a fantastic job. It was unlucky that he got sacked, but they stayed up in there with Nuno, so what can you say? You know, he might not have kept Forest up, we don't know. But with Leicester, he's got a foundation where Maresca's played attacking football. Fair enough, it was in the Championship, but the players are drilled on, you know, this patient style of football. But he's also got individuals like James Justin. I remember him at Luton, springing down the line at wing back. Ricardo Pereira right back. They've got Winks and Ndidi who could form a really good pivot. I know that Maresca tried to push Ndidi forward a bit. Let's be honest, his best position is being in a defensive midfielder position. So if Cooper does go for this 4-2-3-1, which he had going at Forest, Winks and Ndidi is the pivots. Sounds really solid. And we're very early on in the transfer window, so there's no point in speculating as to what his starting lineup's going to be. Players will be going out, players will be coming in. He'll prefer players that the previous manager didn't like, and vice versa. So realistically, we're just going to have to see how he's going to do at Leicester. I personally think he could do well. And by doing well, that's fighting against relegation and not being a washout like Luton, Burnley and Sheffield United were this season. I think with the way that he's shown pragmatism throughout his career, I think he could be good at Leicester. I think he'll work out how to get the best out of his squad, but he's also not scared to change. He went into pre-season and a few games when Forest got first promoted with that 5-back, he switched to a 4-back and it worked. I think with Leicester, he's going to have to work with what he's got. They're skint, as I said, and the players that he's going to have may be very different come opening day. So let me know down in the comments what you think about him as a manager, how you think he's going to do at Leicester, how are Leicester going to do, are they going to stay up, are they going to go down? I'm not too sure. I reckon they'll go down, to be honest, because points deduction, skin, doesn't bode well, does it? And just before we wrap up, I want to mention Soccer-Atos, okay? They sent me this Borussia Dortmund strip. It's a replica from the 1989-90 season. Let's just get a look at that. It's a medium and it fits me perfectly. They have hundreds of options on the website, whether it's nations or clubs. You can get exactly what you want. And use Toby 10 at checkout. You'll grab yourself a 10% discount. Go grab one of the England strips because we're getting to the final, aren't we? And that's the end of the video. Just watch it.